All right, Coach Tony here, bringing back our weekly question and answer periods. So one of the questions that I got was, what are your thoughts on low rep training for hypertrophy? And this is a little bit of a convoluted question in a way, because it depends on what the end goal is and if there is an intermediary effect going on. So I say this because if you're strictly looking to get as big as possible, as quickly as possible, low rep training is not the most efficient way to get there. You're not going to have adequate time under tension. You're not going to have enough mechanical tension or trauma to the muscle itself to stimulate a hypertrophic response to training in a short period of time when you do low rep training. If your main goal is also to get big and strong, low rep training is going to have a bigger place in this style of training for hypertrophy, especially in regards to long-term progression, and also when you're starting to look at sports like weightlifting and powerlifting, which are weight class specific sports. So you want to be able to preferentially train and stimulate the growth of the type 2 muscle fibers, our fast twitch muscle fibers. These are the ones that, yes, they have the most potential for growth, but when you're looking for hypertrophy in a strength-based sport like powerlifting, weightlifting, and even other weight class sports, preferentially doing low rep training for those is going to have a bigger impact long term for hypertrophy gains. But if you're looking for just getting as big and freaky as possible, low rep training will not be, for the vast majority of people, the way to go with this. Most people are going to have a better response for hypertrophy when they're training with higher or moderate rep training. You're looking at 8 to even 20, and on certain exercises like a leg press and even leg extension, pushing the number of reps up into even going 50, or if you're feeling a little adventurous, even going as high as 100 reps for hypertrophy-based goals. But to bring this back to the beginning of the question, my thoughts on low rep training for hypertrophy, it's not my favorite thing in the world to do, but certain individuals are going to benefit more so from this, depending upon any secondary situations to keep in mind, such as, are they in a sport that requires a weight class, or are they just purely bodybuilding, trying to get as big, freaky, aesthetic as possible? All right, so another question I got is, do I have any plans to have Kassem Hansen on one of those interviews that I've been doing with top-level coaches? To put it simply, no, I have no plans to ever interview Kassem. There's two main reasons behind that. One of them being the decorum and such, and his antics revolving around, first, former business partners of his in Tampa Bay, where he's basically slandered them since things went south with that, where he's been saying he was basically the brains behind everything. I'm not going to say the company or those involved because that's their thing, but for someone who's in business with people to then do that to try to raise his own name, I just find that kind of disgusting. The second reason why is in 2018, I was at a funeral in Colorado Springs along with probably 200 other people who came from all corners of North America and even Europe. And Kassem, leading up to that, was posting all over social media that he was going to be there. It was a big deal for him. He was looking forward to seeing everybody. Morning of it, look around, he's nowhere to be seen. During the actual ceremonies, he posts on Facebook that he was had to rescue a dog that morning, and it was the only time that he could go and adopt the dog. And he lives roughly a 1 hour, 1.5 hour drive away from where the venue was. When he was called on it, he tried to make some stupid little excuses. And to me, I just have no time for somebody like that. So no, I have no plans to have Kassem on. Somebody who has that type of wishy-washy morals and their value of their word to me becomes worth dick all, to put it nicely. So I actually get this question a lot in direct messages and Facebook, is that what are the two biggest mistakes I see in training for high school athletes? The number one has nothing to do with strength and conditioning. It has to do with Kids are focusing and specializing in a single sport too young. If you're specialized in a sport before you're 16, you have specialized far too young. You need to get more exposure to multiple different sports in order for you to actually develop as a complete athlete. You take a look at the vast majority of even NFL linemen, NBA players, even a bunch of NHL players, Major League Baseball, and even professional soccer or football players over in Europe, the vast majority played more than one sport. Wayne Gretzky, the GOAT when it comes to hockey, is known for saying as when he was younger, as soon as the hockey season was over, he couldn't wait to put the stick away and pick up his lacrosse stick. LeBron James, Allen Iverson, both high school football phenoms, but they were better at basketball and became NBA legends. If you look at the vast majority of the linemen for the University of Alabama men's football team, almost every single one of them in high school was a multi-sport athlete. So these are your creme de la creme of athletes, and they're multi-sport athletes. If you want to develop as a complete athlete, a better athlete, get better kinesthetic awareness or body awareness, when you're younger, if you're a parent watching this, your kid needs to be trying and playing multiple different sports. Just having them playing a single sport of soccer or basketball or football isn't actually going to develop all of the physical qualities that's actually going to help them at that next level. You need to have more exposure and stimulus of different things. Not to mention, a soccer player that ends up playing some basketball is going to have some better field vision, as weird as that might sound, because you start to realize where people are going to be just automatically. Football, basketball, baseball, all of these kind of intertwine with one another. If you take a look back in the 80s and 90s, Bo Jackson played baseball for the Kansas City Royals, but he was also an unstoppable force in the NFL. Deion Sanders is another one. Showtime. He played in the NFL and Major League Baseball concurrently. So it's not that you can only excel in a single sport. Yes, these two are your extreme outliers. But if you take a look at what the common denominator between all these professional athletes is that they didn't just grow up only playing a single sport. They got to try multiple different things. The second biggest kind of mistake I see when it comes to high school athlete training is that so many strength coaches are chasing numbers far too young. They're restricting or reducing the ranges of motion on exercises because they're trying to chase the number. They see, oh, combine for football, they're looking at bench press. So you see them chasing bench press numbers. But if you take a look at so many NFL players, not very many of them actually scored in the top few of the bench press for their given position. The other thing when it comes to chasing numbers in the gym and restricting the ranges of motion is that we're not developing tissue pliability as well as strength throughout the full range of motion. If we're stronger through a full range of motion, for example, if you're able to squat fully, you're going to increase the health of your knees. If you're going through longer ranges on a shoulder press, the joint integrity of your shoulder is going to improve long term. Yes, short term strength gains are going to take a bit of a hit. But with a high school athlete, strength gains right now are not as important as 5 or 10 years down the road when they're starting to actually, for some of them, make money playing their sport. We see this in powerlifting and weightlifting. You see all these young athletes just absolutely crushing it when they're younger. Yes, they physically may have developed younger, but a lot of them, when they get to that senior ranks, they start to fall off. Why? They hit their developmental curve too early. They didn't build a foundation to be able to handle these high stress loads later on. That's why younger athletes should be building that foundation. More stimulus to different things, different modalities, different sports, different training systems. And then as they get older and learn to specialize, then you start to see the fruits of that labor. All right, so this question made me laugh a little bit. And the guy who sent it to me, Ed, he's in the New York City area, a great strength coach down there, dealing with developmental athletes, like high school and whatnot. But his question was, what is your biggest pet peeve in the industry right now? And to be completely honest, is the complete lack of ethics and the bullshit so many want to spew while they want to fuck one another over just to get a step ahead. To me, you see it. I've got a couple friends down in Australia where their former staff members were trying to steal intellectual property from them. You've got people who will work for a company just to gain a couple of clients, and they fuck off out of the company so that they can then take advantage of that. Like, it's just I don't want to say it's a lack of loyalty, because loyalty's earned, but at the same time, people go into a lot of these situations with a nefarious intent, both from the employee point of view, but also some of the employers in this industry have been taking advantage of loyal. They've been taking advantage of loyal employees who have bent over backwards. The past 2 years, they've been completely hit one way or another, and some companies have been withholding pay or not paying the proper amounts. This is across the board around the world. These types of things keep on happening. In order for this industry to be taken seriously as it should be by other professions, and not the joke that is viewed as by professional organizations, we need to level up our game professionally and morally and ethically. We need to start treating this industry professionally, for one, ourselves. Having part-time people in it with 1 foot in, 1 foot out, no, that's got to go away. But the biggest pet peeve is the complete, not necessarily selfishness and egotistical behaviors, but it's that complete lack of care for the other person, where people are just out to screw one another. All right, so this is an interesting one. It's, what have I changed my mind about in the last year in regards to training? To be honest, in the last year, a lot has been confirmed and verified, but one thing that has really changed is, due to the pandemic and everything surrounding that, is a lot of clients aren't necessarily coming in for the simple reason of I want weight loss or build muscle. A lot of sessions have almost had to change to stress management, where this is the one time they're able to get out of the house for, maybe it's that day or this week because of work from home, restrictions. And it's just been, for clients, a way for them to keep their own wits about them. When it comes to athletes, even, for them, it's the same thing. Like the wishy-washiness of, oh, am I going to be able to compete? Am I not? Am I going to have a season? Am I not going to have a season? These are things that cause undue stress to people. And on top of that, every so often, the workout is literally just take the plan, throw it out the damn window because the plan was useless this day. We might just be, okay, we're just going to do a little bit of a sweat session, or we're going to do a couple of hard sets just to vent your system a little bit. And I've even had to look an athlete in the eye and say, you need to just go home today and just take the day off. Like, for me, learning that part, because I've got a business to run and I'm sending somebody home, or I'm not pushing somebody to their limit today that they were accustomed to before, but I've had to take these steps for the betterment of that client. So another question that I got was, do sprinters need to do full range on squats? So yes and no. It's a very nuanced answer in regards to this. You have to take into account the type of athlete that they are, the type of sprinter that they are, but also what time of year is it? If it's 3 weeks out from the Olympic Games, no, you're going to cause that sprinter to run slower, plain and simple. Now, if you're talking September, October, all the way through to pre-competition phases, it can be done. For some sprinters, actually a vast majority of them, they're extremely tight through their hip flexors. Their calf and Achilles complex is going to be extremely tight. Their low back is going to be tight. These are adaptations that are beneficial to the sport, because in order for you to return the force off the track and be extremely quick, so have very minimal ground contact time, but apply a massive amount of force into the track in that time, you need this stiffness. It's referred to as tendon stiffness, but it's full body stiffness. As weird as it is with sprinting, it's a controlled violence every single step. Every time you hit the ground, it's but that needs to also pop back off the ground as quickly as possible. You want to spend as much time airborne as possible, going in a forward motion, as opposed to taking more time on the ground. So this tendon stiffness actually helps with that because our tendons store and release energy much more efficiently, faster, and it kind of creates a plyometric effect with tendons as opposed to muscles. Muscles are much slower. They have to actually contract and relax. Tendons are a high collagen fiber. They don't actually really have a contractile function to them. They're more like an elastic band. So to simplify this answer, earlier in the training season, yes, full range of motion is going to benefit a lot of sprinters. It's also going to reduce some of the niggling little injuries that they get by opening up strength through their hips in different ranges of motion. Their quad is going to be more fully developed to be able to handle higher loads later on. Later in the season, pre-competition, competition phases, squatting even at this time isn't necessarily going to be beneficial to them. At a certain time of the year, I'll typically make so that a sprinter isn't really doing a barbell squat, or if they are, it's going to be like a Russian rhythm squat or an inertia squat, where we're not really trying to load up any mechanical tension on them too much, but we're trying to get reactive strength and we're trying to get more of that explosive off the get-go strength. All right, so the last question that I got was, what is that Ken has you started doing? And so first I'll give a little background on that. So Ken is Dr. Ken Kinakin. He is a chiropractor and manual therapist out of Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. It's the western part of the Greater Toronto area. He's the creator of the Swiss Symposium, Specific Weight Training Injury Specialist, which I was extremely fortunate to last year be a presenter for the virtual version of it. And so Ken's been pushing me to do my own thing, which I'll get into in a moment, for my business, and it just kind of, in his eyes, it makes everybody look a little bit better when they have this. So it has to do with writing. So I've been doing some writing. I now do some more writing for HP Labs. I've done writing in the past for the likes of Charles Poliquin. I was the ghostwriter for his last 2 books. I've also written for a couple of other gyms and publications, both as a ghostwriter and as my name on the publication. So what Ken has now pushed me to do is to write my own training methodology book. So basically to take what's up here and what I've learned, I'm just going to straight up say it, what I've learned, what I've stolen, what I've adapted from various people around the world in the industry, and put it to paper so that people can see how I train, what the thought process is in the back of my head when I'm doing something. So I've committed to doing this, and as scary as it might seem, shit, I'm writing my own fucking book that terrifies the actual life out of me, but it's something that I need to do, and I know that I can do it, so I'm announcing it here that by Christmas 2022, it will be ready for publication and purchase. So I've started the outline, so I'll just give a little synopsis of how the outline is going to be. It's going to be a little bit of a play on my actual logo, where there's 3 steps. So it's going to be kind of like the steps of the podium or principles of the podium or something like that. And it's going to be broken into 3 major parts. You have your training system, so your training principles. You got speed principles, because that's a big thing when it comes to athletes and even general population. But then you also have recovery principles. So that's your treatment, recovery methods, yoga, stretching, mindfulness, as well as nutrition, supplementation. So all of this is going to be put to paper. The problem I'm going to have doing it is, as you can see, I just rambled a little bit there, but it's taking what I have in my head and what I've got on my computer and whatnot, and trimming it down so that it's just straight to the point, the best of what I can, at this time, can kind of put out there. So that's what's going to be coming. Christmas 2022 is my own book on training methods. It's a terrifying prospect to me, but I got to get it done. So this kind of concludes this week's question and answer. I'm going to be doing these weekly just because pre-pandemic, it's something I kind of enjoyed doing. It took a couple minutes here and there to do, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But it makes me actually think and start to upgrade myself. All right, so this concludes this week's question and answer. I'm going to be doing these as much as possible weekly. You can fire off your training, nutrition, supplementation, recovery, performance style questions. You can ask them to me right here on YouTube,